immigrants from El Salvador. And I've been very fortunate that my career has been spanned across leadership. Everything I do revolves around people. I have a passion for people, a genuine curiosity for people. And more importantly, any of the businesses that I've been involved in have to do with helping others. So a little bit about myself is that I like to give back where I can. And more importantly, it's always important for me and also my family to know that you can do anything you set your mind to, and we'll talk about that in a bit.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jose, for introducing yourself. Look forward to hearing more from you two as well. Let's move forward to Nick Nanton.
Hey there, how's everybody doing? I am a ADD kid who went to law school, and now I direct films, documentary films. I write country music, and I run a branding agency. So I still have the ADD and get to tell awesome stories. Most importantly, I enjoy connecting with people. So it's on the deepest level I can. So sharing their stories through film, or helping them share their story with the world through their brand, or songwriting is just an addiction I can't get rid of.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Nick. Looking forward to hearing more from you. Awesome. Last but not least, Indini, do you want to go ahead and give a quick introduction about yourself?
Sure. It's great to see you, Noble.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I obviously was trying to get on the thing a little bit too late, but thank you for having me. So I'm Chandani Porteous. It's like the hardest name on the planet to say, so you can always just call me Chicky, because it's like one of those things that you're like, what am I supposed to, like, it looks like I'm a Greek man on paper, but I'm not. So I live here in Dallas, and I have been in the nonprofit sector for a large amount of my career, probably now, oh gosh, 22 plus years. And so worked in science and in cancer. I was at Susan G. Komen for 10 years, really here in global headquarters in Dallas, Texas, overseeing all of our missions. So I was chief mission officer there, overseeing research, our community health programs, over 125 affiliates, 33 countries, and all of our public policy work. And prior to that, I was at UT Southwestern, at Children's, and at Parkland, and at the School of Public Health, and have a background in public health, primarily, and in leadership. And so I really loved, systems change and really broad change across really the world. So when I was at Komen, there was a lot of controversy in those years. It was the time of the funding and the defunding of Planned Parenthood, the controversy with the Catholic Church, and some of those pieces of history within the breast cancer movement. And I kind of found a niche being a crisis leader, which I don't know, I didn't really set out to do that, but it sort of ended up becoming what I did do. So I left Komen, and I ended up in the role as CEO and president of the Livestrong Foundation after Lance Armstrong had admitted his doping. And that was a turnaround situation. So I did that in Austin, and then came back to Dallas and was in pediatric cancer, which is an area that was definitely underfunded. And then we don't have a lot of answers there like we do in other cancers. And so spent a lot of that time. Noble, I think we probably met over the time of Empowering 1 Billion Women. And that's, a lot of different work that was done, really looking at the nonprofit sector, and then looking at entrepreneurship, and really looking at the similarities that there were, that oftentimes nonprofits start with really zero capital, but they start with a lot of passion, and they start with great ideas, and oftentimes just friends who are willing to kind of step up and lead with you.
100%.
So, isn't it, right. It's just really fascinating. So I again, find myself in a role now where I'm able to offer coaching, leadership, and guidance. And things are ever changing. Now I've kind of joined a private equity group where now we do fund numerous projects all across the world. We do matching funds to the millions and billions. And, that's exciting for me, because especially when we look at women in leadership and then capital that's available to women and to people of color, I obviously have a great passion in that space.
Exactly. I know that very well too as well. And I think it's really exciting that you're starting off with, I would say, a deeper dive into your story. And it's going to be really exciting to really go through and really just touch on those points, and also so many more points too as well. We actually have some really good prepared questions, and I'm definitely going to use some of the notes that I just basically wrote down about every single panelists today, and we'll definitely wrap around into some of those different points too as well. Thank you so much for that introduction. Everyone, happy to have you guys too as well. All panelists and attendees in the chat, I just posted the very quick agenda for the day with also some timestamps, just as an FYI. So we're going to try to get through this and get on with our Thursday so we can get to that Friday that we're all looking forward to, and then food coma next week for Thanksgiving. Everyone, of course, be safe with everything going on. But yeah, looking forward to jumping into it. Obviously, we're going to jump into the prepared questions, and we're really excited about this. And we have a really cool one that we're going to start off with, actually, because it's actually a book and also an investment manager that I'm definitely a fan of. And we're going to talk about Ray Dalio, and I have his book actually right here called Principles. And he outlines high-level guidelines that he regularly leverages throughout his life, right? Principles are things that you essentially use as your modus operandi as you're moving throughout the day, you're moving throughout life, moving throughout decisions. And these principles are things that he applies not just in business, but in life too as well. So my question to panelists is, having achieved levels of success that a lot of people can't or have not achieved yet, do you have any principles of your own that you regularly follow? And we can go ahead and start off with anyone that wants to jump in first.
I'll jump in. So, as a journalist, I was a reporter here in Dallas for about 8 years at NBC and CBS. And one thing I always wanted to do was, and I always said, is that I'm going to work with integrity, no matter who it is I'm working with. And I say that because sometimes people would get interviews and kind of do it in a shady way. And then I would get a call from my boss asking me, why didn't you have that interview? And I said, because they did not actually give me permission. And I would rather not get the story than, get somebody's interview in a shady way, or that wasn't, in a way that they knew exactly what was going on. And so eventually, I did a lot of crime stories as well. I worked with a lot of police and fire departments across Texas. And operating in that way, knowing that I was going to start doing media training for police chiefs and fire departments, it was an easy transition because they already knew me. They already trusted me. They trusted my work, and they had seen how I had operated as a journalist. And so when I transitioned into doing my own business, it really helped me because they already trusted what I represented. And so for me, I've always operated in that manner. And I feel like that has always preceded me and has always been a part of my reputation to allow me to continue to not only build relationships, but to create more opportunities.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that answer. Let's go ahead and get one more response. Who would like to take that?
Yeah, follow Susie on that one. You make a good point, right? Integrity is paramount. I also like to add the fact that you always try to find ways where you can add value to others. Throughout my career, I always sort of put that first, right? Which is, how can I help others? But then more importantly, how do people feel is always sort of what I walk away with. How did I make that person feel? A lot of people will never remember everything you said, but you look at someone and I think, wow, I had a good interaction with that person. I don't know what exactly it was, but I felt good about it. I want to continue that. So certainly how you make others feel is also just as important, right? And I always try to make sure that people feel wanted, that they feel desired, that they feel empowered. All those things are important. And I genuinely mean that too, right? It's not like we're being fake, it's being authentic.
Awesome. I want to just circle back real quickly, for people that are just joining us. I see that a few attendees joined in while we were going through our first question. And we talked about different principles to essentially keep in mind as you're living and working. Susie Solis touched on living and working with integrity. And Jose Chavez followed up with being able to serve people no matter what and help people. These are two really good principles. I'm glad we started off with that. So another question we're going to roll into is taking in consideration the common expression, hindsight is 20/20, right? You hear that all the time. People will say it. They're not even sure what they're talking about, but they say hindsight is 20/20. If you were to do one thing differently near the beginning of your career, what would it be?
I'll take that. I hope hindsight is more like 2021, because 2020 is brutal. But look, I think one of the things I wish I could go back and tell myself, particularly, is like, you learn character at a young age, and we get into business and into entrepreneurship or whatever, corporate ladder we're trying to climb. And there are many people in all of those worlds that will try to convince you that everything is different now. And I wish that I could go back and tell myself, no, it's really not different. An a-hole is still an a-hole. They just learned how to use that to climb the ladder. There's this weird thing I know for me, when I first started seeing super successful people out in the world, and I just didn't know that many of them, but some of them had this edginess, they didn't seem to really care about people. They just were out for themselves. And I started to get a false belief. I wondered, maybe that's how you have to be successful. And the great news is that that's not true at all. And so I would just say, look, your skills, your gifts, your talents, everything that's led you to where you are right now, have the good and the bad, have made you uniquely suited to fill a really cool hole in the world that the world needs. So number one, don't change who you are to fit who they want you to be. Find the space that you can fit in. And when you find that space, it's so fulfilling because no one else can fill that space. So you are such a hero to those who have been waiting for you and have been needing you. So just nothing's changed. Just keep being yourself, learn, be humble, and serve. I think Jose said that well. Just serve, and you'll find it.
Thanks for touching on that. Really appreciate the response. Do we have anyone else that wants to give some feedback on that question?
Yeah, this is Chandani. I think that what Nick said is exactly right. It is so true. I think oftentimes we, especially generationally, we feel like we have to be something that we saw before. And oftentimes we see this in leadership in a lot of different ways, that we feel like we have to lead, because that's how everybody was leading. I will tell you that during my rise into leadership, it was also the time that I had 4 children in 4 years. And I am not a medical marvel. I had twins. So that's kind of not really that, it's kind of cheating, but not. So I had to ask myself, do I just need to be a mom? But I didn't want to just be a mom. I wanted to be a mom all the time. And I also wanted to work, and I still wanted to contribute, and I wanted to give back. And I didn't know how, because that's a lot of kids. But I realized I don't have to lead like a man. I can lead like me. And whatever that is, I think for each person, I don't know that we always see models of that. And so, Nick, I really love that in terms of what you said, because what people have to give and what they are inherently and what they have to be able to give forward in terms of leadership is already within them. It's really, surrounding themselves with incredible teams of people who can execute their vision, or really great mentors that are going to help bring that out. And luckily, most of us, I think, would say that we are where we are because of the people who taught us, or who gave us a chance, or who listened to us, or picked up the phone and called. And so, I wish maybe I would have known earlier that maybe that I'd been successful at it, so that I wouldn't have been so worried that I was trying to fit and conform. But yeah, I think be bold in a world where sometimes, people tell you you're going to fail. We wouldn't be here if we didn't try over and over and over again, even if we did fail.
Awesome. Thank you so much for touching on that. I think we can all agree that that particular question was definitely a question that, pushed the energy out from a few people on this panel for sure. So I really appreciate everyone giving some type of, response in some way, even though not every single person got a chance to speak on it. But since this was a popular question, and we also see the attendees are, definitely leaving some chats and some responses. Does anyone else want to touch on anything else in regards to that question?
Yeah, look, we said hindsight 2020, right? So when I reflect at my many failures in life and my successes, I always think about, I wish I would have taken risks sooner when I was younger. I wish I would have asked for help sooner when I was younger. And certainly I wish I would have surrounded myself with like-minded individuals sooner when I was younger. I wish I knew all that then, as opposed to now. I think my story would be a lot different. But certainly I don't look at my story as a timeline that I'm supposed to hit certain goals because my mom said or my dad said that at 20 I needed to do this, at 25. I look at it as like, this is my timeline, and my timeline work is just fine, right? So that's what I would tell the young individuals out there, the ones that are looking forward, is to do it now. And there's never a good time like now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for touching on that. And attendees, I want to remind you, keep messaging in the chat. If you hear something that you really like or that's inspiring, leave a message. We really love the feedback. Thank you so much, Jasmine, Susie. Thank you for talking to as well. And being able to talk to the attendees too as well. This is very engaging. So feel free to, message in the chat if you like what you're hearing. Definitely, send a message. We're trying to connect. Obviously, in times like this too as well, it's really important to connect. So feel free to talk, speak out. No pressure. Obviously, this is an open environment, but we want to hear from you, right? So let's keep talking. Thank you, guys. And let's move on to the next question. I'm going to hop around a little bit because the next two ones I have on my list are a little bit service and, mindset focused. And I think we just touched on that in the previous questions. So I want to kind of touch on a few different things for now. Let's talk about more like process, right? A lot of times people think about, here is my ideal day. Like, here's how I want to walk into my day. I want to do X, Y, and Z, et cetera, et cetera. But like, what is a successful day? It's very hard to define. So my question to the panelists would be, what do you do to prepare for a successful day? Do you have a regular morning routine?
Mine's easy. I'll take that quick. I always try to work out in the morning with my wife. It gives us some time to get the kids to school when they are going to school, which two of them are right now, which is great. And I try to have a loose plan. I mean, I have meetings scheduled. Of course, COVID, like I feel like I have like 20 Zooms today, right? That's just the world we live in. But normally I was out doing appointments, filming. I actually just got back from filming with Dick Vitale from ESPN yesterday. But I try to plan like three important things. And if I get three important things done, and if I get it done by like 10 a.m. and I do it every day, every week, I'm going to get 15 important things done a week. And I know I'm crushing most everyone who's just doing whatever they think they need to be doing. So I do that. And I always my faith plays a big part in what I do. So I always try to leave God elbow room. Like, if I try to plan the day, it's not going to be the best day I could possibly have. Like, I can have an idea, but I try to invite my faith in to say, hey, look, am I being present and making the best decisions? Where could this go? What am I missing? And of course, leaving room for things like this. Like, I always love connecting. It's more fun in person, but connecting with young people who are excited about life and excited about what's next and have questions. And I always try to leave room for that because, if you don't, it actually helps you a lot. I just did an 8-part docuseries on a big podcaster named James Altucher, and he has a theory called plus minus equals that he got from Ken Shamrock, the famous, MMA fighter, UFC guy. And the whole idea is every day you should be spending time with all types of people who are above you, people who can teach you things, people who are coming up in the world that you can help, and then people who are on your level so you can try to hash out hard issues. And so it's sort of this plus minus equals. If you can do a little bit of that every day, I think you can win.
Thank you so much, Nick. I appreciate that energy. Does anyone else want to touch on that question too as well?
Well, I'll go ahead and jump in. My day's a little different because I start at 3:15 in the morning, and then I do a 5-hour morning show. So I'm on the air from 5 to 10. And then after that, I still work with clients sometimes. So sometimes it's a lot of hours of work, and what I have to do to make sure that it's successful, since I have so much stuff going on, is really get enough sleep. Like, I always joke, I have the sleep schedule of a 5-year-old. I go to bed early and sometimes I have to take naps. It is what it is. And it's okay. My schedule isn't the ideal for a lot of people. Normally I'm actually a night owl, but because I'm doing this morning show, I've had to turn into a morning person. And actually that experience has been really good. So I think for me, and I think for a lot of other people too, is I always have to make sure that I'm not over scheduling so that I'm exhausted the next day. I have to make sure that I'm getting my sleep. When we used to actually go out in public and do stuff, I would have to say, okay, I can't do this happy hour tonight because I've got, a lot of stuff going on tomorrow and I know my day is going to be crazy. So I think for me, success is just really making sure that I feel good and that I'm really able to give my jobs everything that I can. And in order to do that, I really have to take care of myself and make sure that I'm not doing too much and that it's okay if something has to cancel, because if you're not giving 100%, it's not fair to your clients or to who you're serving.
I have to just pipe up, Noble, so maybe I can make somebody feel a little bit better. I have absolutely never had the same day in my entire life twice. And so I think I always like want to be one of those people. Like I so want to be able to say I woke up and I worked out, but that would be like a lie from the pit. I mean, that did not happen. We're lucky if the carpool line gets fully done. I think they're all there today. So what's interesting though, is I've had to learn a very important lesson in my life. And I wish I would have learned it before now. And that's that I defined success very much around how I was raised to believe that success should look like. And I was an immigrant that was brought to this, country when I was 18 months old. And so of course we came from India. So obviously I was supposed to be a doctor. That didn't work out. I ended up marrying one instead because I thought that was quicker, but then that also didn't kind of work out. So I ended up going the public health route. And I always called that the Asian F, right? Because, okay, great, I didn't become a doctor. Until 2020, when all of a sudden everybody knew what public health was. And I realized, okay, you know what? Maybe there was a plan. Maybe God left me some elbow room to be able to say, okay, I actually have a plan for you. It's just not going to come around until 2020 of all years. So I say that to say that when I look at success for me, I have to actually tell myself that sometimes success is not working. Sometimes it's sitting down and playing Legos. Sometimes it's just being present with employees who just need to be heard. They don't necessarily need answers. And I think we as leaders oftentimes want to push to that. And being present. And so wherever I am, that's the best thing I've tried to learn, is that I don't necessarily need to multitask. But if I can be fully present in that moment, that might be the greatest success of all that I hope I see when I look back at my career and think I was really there for that moment. I wasn't watching the concert through my iPhone with like the video thing, like that's the new cigarette lighter. I mean, how many of us actually go back and look back at those videos over and over again? But I really wanted to be there. And so to me, that sometimes maybe I didn't even really achieve like a monetary goal, but I was there.
I really appreciate that. Something that really resonated with me was just the idea of multitasking and being able to be really fully present. I think that is important for sure. There's definitely value in multitasking and delegating and trying to hustle and do a lot of things, but there's a lot of value in doing things really, really well. So I really appreciate that. So I think we can all agree that, this year has been definitely very interesting. It's been a very long year for a lot of different people in different capacities. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm a dancer. I like to dance. And, when I saw that I couldn't go and enjoy and dance anymore, like in a COVID environment, I was really sad, but I figured out how to dance in my place and everything like that. But it was really fitting that before everything went on lockdown earlier this year, that a show called The Last Dance actually, was released by Michael Jordan. And that was probably the best gift of the year for me, because I'm a big fan of Michael Jordan and also his mindset too as well. So kind of, transitioning into the idea of The Last Dance, Michael Jordan once said, I failed over and over and over again, and that is why I succeed, right? Implying that everyone has highs and lows on their journey, and everyone's journey is different too as well. You can't measure someone's journey or someone's success the same way. So with that, what do you do to remain grounded during the peaks of your life and motivated during the challenging times too as well?
Here, I'll share a story. Me and a good friend of mine, this a few years ago, we're looking at starting our first business, and we had this idea with some of our connections that we should start a staging company for homes that are going to be put up for sale. And we knew nothing about staging homes, selling homes, other than the fact that we've purchased homes, right? And so we had a good friend who owned a furniture company. And so we told ourselves, you know what? I don't think this is going to be very hard. We could figure this thing out. Let's go and do a pitch. So as naively as we were back then, we went and did this pitch, and we failed miserably. It didn't go as planned. But the learning from that was that we took the chance, right? But secondly was that there was a lot that we didn't know, and we were okay with that at that time. And I still would argue that I'm okay with it not knowing everything. But what that failure taught me is that once it was all said and done, we had some drinks with the CEO of the company, and we were talking about what we could have done better. And he gave us so much feedback. that now I look at it, what a gift, right? I always take feedback as a gift now, because very few people will give it to you. And then when you ask for it, very few people will give you genuine feedback. So the feedback that he gave me that day helped us and propelled us to our next venture, which we're in now, Rich. We own a restaurant together. But had we not done that, though, I think I wouldn't have had that experience, and therefore I wouldn't have been where I am today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jose. I appreciate you touching on the story. I think there's a lot of power in giving an answer with a story. So I appreciate that. And I want to remind all the panelists two different things. One, definitely check the chat box here and there. Thank you so much to everyone that's doing that. And also thanks to the attendees that are also, being very active. Check the chat box. A few people are asking questions to different panelists as you provide answers. So definitely check that and try to circle back, whether via message or in your audio, and answer those questions for the attendees so everyone can get a lot of value from this, right? So I really appreciate that. Another thing too as well, when you're not speaking, attendees, please be on mute because we're getting a little bit of feedback. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. I know that, Jose touched on a few things there, and I feel like someone else would like to touch on something on that too. Is there a panelist that would like to speak?
I will. The training that I do is a lot. People are afraid of speaking, or just, they're insecure about it. And so I think I always tell people I don't believe in failure, because every failure that I have ever experienced has always been a learning lesson. And if not a learning lesson, at least I know I have an answer. So if I wanted to try something and I didn't know what it was about, and then I failed miserably, then at least I know. And now I can push that to the side and go on to the next thing. And so that's what I always encourage people to do in everything. Like Jose said earlier, is take more risks. And I think that the fear of failure is what stops us from taking risks. And so I always tell people, at least you'll have an answer. You can go either way. You can keep going because you really loved what you just tried to do, or you can, like I said, move on and say, you know what, that wasn't for me. So it's always going to teach you something. And I don't believe that there's true failure unless you quit, unless you say, I can't do this. Like, the only failure that I see is when you say I can't and you don't even try. Like, you got to at least try. You got to at least do it. Put yourself out there. And I think, this also ties into the question that you asked earlier about what would you tell your younger self? Same thing. I would say to myself, like, there is no such thing as failure. Don't even worry about that, because all that's going to do is teach you more things. And I think a lot of people, when we're young, we don't have the confidence to kind of push through that fear. As you get older, you kind of just don't care anymore, and you just do it anyway. And so that's the beauty, I guess, of getting older. So I would tell my younger self, like, don't be insecure, just take those risks, do it. And there is no such thing as failure.
I really appreciate that response, Susie. I definitely can relate to that too as well. That's a really cool mindset to have in terms of just tackling the idea of, I'm going through this obstacle, I'm going around it, I'm going under it, I'm going above it. Like, I don't know how I'm going to get through it, but I'm going to figure it out. And I think that is interesting. And, being able to have the perseverance and the focus to keep going no matter what is really important, but also to have the humility to also ask for help too as well, and be able to reach up and also reach down at the same time to move forward. You can't just reach up a ladder by yourself and focus on yourself. You have to definitely reach different ways. So I really appreciate that. So let's go ahead and move into another question too as well. And I think we're on a really good pace right now. Time is looking good too as well. So I'm really excited also to get to the Q&A for attendees, but let's go ahead and keep jumping into the prepared questions. For those of you that don't know, this event is hosted by Junior Achievement and also Millennial Clubs. And Junior Achievement in particular is really focused on community and being able to empower and uplift people with education, with community, and with resources. And the YES Board in particular, Young Executive Society, is focused on bringing together civic-minded leaders and professionals that are in the prime of their career or growing into the prime of their career, that care about community and also care about business too as well. There is such a thing to care about both, and they can exist at the same time. So junior achievement's amazing. For those of you guys that don't know about junior achievement, I'm going to definitely touch on that a little bit more later on and provide some links or an email that you can basically use to be able to reach out. But I have a question for the panelists. And I think many of the panelists have already touched on this already today. Do you feel it is essential to help the community as you are operating business? Let's touch on that.
Well, I could obviously speak to some of that if you, but Nick, did you want to go ahead?
No, I missed the end of that question. I want to make sure I had it right. So
let me make sure I repeat it. All panelists, do you believe it's as essential, not just, something that's nice to do or something that is, good for PR or something that would look cute on your social media page? Do you feel it is essential to help the community as you are operating business? Or as you are running your company or your brand, do you feel it is essential to be involved in the community and help the community?
Absolutely. I think that at any level, if it's the beginning of our academic experience or throughout our career, I would tell you that, and I always say this, every experience or opportunity that we take, if it's, a class, it's what professors tell us all the time, but it's really true about anything in life. It's what you're going to make of it. It's what you're going to take from it. It's what you're going to ask about it. The only reason I'm here today is because Robert Morin decided to call me out of nowhere, never heard of him ever, when he was making a choice about the next steps of where he wanted to go to college and what he wanted to do. And he was just cold calling CEOs. And he made that moment his. And he decided to do that and have the gumption to do it because he really cared about the community and wanted to talk to somebody who had done work in that space. I highly commend that. And so I say, I began working when I was 14 as a junior volunteer. I mean, it was technically at the time called Candy Striper, but let's not date me into that little outfit. But I knew how to make the popcorn, how to deliver the flowers, but I also learned how to become a phlebotomist and how to run the lab. And by the end, I had scrubbed into tons of surgeries and done all these things, mostly just because people were willing to teach me. And so part of the community experience is giving back and doing what you love to do, but it's also an opportunity to educate yourself on how to do things better and how to give things back better. Because I think what we know is the system isn't always easy and it's broken in many places. And so to that point, when we're running businesses, I do believe we have a moral obligation to give back to those who aren't as resourced as we are. And many of us have had opportunities to do things. Some of us have not at all. Some of us don't have those connections. Some of us don't have the access to the things that we need to really make our business successful, operations and reach and global, whatever it might be. That if we as business leaders don't view a collaborative approach to include our community partners, we're never going to be able to properly disseminate. And I would say that, it could be in health, it could be in tech, it could be anything, but I would always used to say, and when we were talking about cancer, I'd say, if the cure fell in the forest and the everyday person did not have access to that cure, was there ever really a cure? Because that's what the community does for you. It actually gets it to the people. And I think all of us in business understand that that is where we want to be, is serving our clients and the missions that we all believe in.
That makes a lot of sense. I really appreciate, you tying that back into as well with a really good high level view. And also you broke it down to a micro view too as well. I appreciate that. Nick, I know you had something you wanted to say. Would you like to touch on that?
Yeah, I'll take another angle on that. Everything, Cheney said was perfect, but another angle on it is, look, in business, there always has to be a customer. So you literally can't operate. You're only at best 50% of any equation, and at most times less than that. So in order to even operate in the world, you must be a part of some type of community. It doesn't have to be local. It could be global. It could be online. It could be, it could be junior achievement. But pick a community and serve. And I've always found that, when I don't know what to do, I get out of my own way and just serve all the opportunity comes. So I think it's super important to be involved in community. I mean, for mental health, for so many other reasons, but we don't have, I mean, serving in your local community is awesome too. Like, it's a great thing you should do if you feel called to do it. If you don't feel called to do it and you just want a good selfie, don't do it. But do things that you feel called to do, but be a part of community, because we all know that life is filled with peaks and valleys. Without valleys, there aren't peaks. And so community is the only thing that's really going to get you through it. And when you're in a place where you can serve the community, serve them well, because when the tide changes, you really want to be able to have earned the right for them to serve you well also.
Makes a lot of sense. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for that feedback. Service, 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 being able to serve the community. Does anyone else want to touch on that? I feel like this was definitely a question that prompts a lot of feedback.
Noble, me being on the board of Junior Achievement, the Young Society Board, one of the reasons that I got involved was, as a young kid, I always looked at people that were different from my parents, right? Because my parents were hardworking immigrants from El Salvador, as I mentioned at the beginning, right? So all they knew was to work hard. And I saw other people that lived a different lifestyle that I wasn't exposed to. So the reason that I give back and why I'm involved is because I want to listen to those young minds and give them different perspective. But more importantly, though, I always end up walking away when I volunteer my time, or I'm in a classroom and we're talking about needs versus wants, and we're talking about the basic stuff around life. I walk away always learning something new about myself, but then more importantly, I walk away getting perspective from a young individual who looks at the world just different than I do. And so to me, I always feel like it's just as impactful as I am to them. It's very impactful to me too. And I always feel a little bit changed every time I do that. So yes, we have an obligation, no matter where you stand in the scale of success, to give back, because those same individuals we're giving back to are the ones that are going to be doing the same in the future. So we have a responsibility.
I agree. And kind of for the same reason of Jose, my mother is an immigrant. We spoke Spanish only in the household growing up. And I saw people on TV, but they didn't look like me. And, a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, maybe, a friend of mine that lives here had been to a bunch of leadership summits, and none of them were specifically for Latinas. And with Dallas being 40% Latino, it makes no sense. So 6 of us came together. We created a Latina Leadership Summit with people who look like us. And really one of the main things that we say is #NoMeanGirls. It's all about creating that community, that sisterhood. And also, I think you're obligated to pull the next generation up, to show them the way, to hold their hand while they're going through that. Maybe you did or didn't get that when you were, in that same position. But for me, it's really important to show that you can come from an immigrant family. Maybe your parents didn't know English, and it's okay that you grew up like that, and you can still be successful and still make your way in whatever world you want to create. And so I think it's important to give back. I think it's important to make sure that you're, if you're doing these things, that you be an example, because there's a lot of craziness in the world right now, and we all need a hug right now. So I think it's really important to spread positivity in whatever way that you can. And I always try and do that, even just with a random smile to a stranger on the street. Sometimes that might be all you need that day.
There is enough negativity in the world for sure. So I'm pretty sure that it goes a long way to provide even just drops of positivity in someone's day. A lot of times people dismiss the idea that they can be positive in that moment and it will actually make a difference, but it makes a difference,
Noble, can I add 30 more seconds here, or 5 seconds? I want to free you all from this. I love Jose's focus on giving, but I think we've all been taught this term, and we say it unintentionally, giving back. Like, you don't need to give me back anything unless you took something. So just give. Like, so a lot of people, like, they have this interesting relationship with giving back, but it's like, it's so much more fun when you just forget the back part and you just give. And so again, we've all been preconditioned to say you should give back. So I just would empower you all to forget about giving back unless you took something. If you took something, give it back. But other than that, just give. It's a lot more fun.
100%, 100%. I actually said that a long time ago when I stepped into philanthropy. I don't like the word giving back. I think it sounds weird, you know? So I'm so glad that you touched on that actually too as well. We have probably time for one more prepared question. I know we're right now transitioning into, no, let's go ahead and transition. I think we're at that mark actually. Audience, let's go ahead and shoot some actual questions. If you want to use your chat box or if you want to use the Q&A is open. I know I see some questions coming in here and there. If you guys want to go ahead and start leaving some questions in the Q&A, attendees, this is your time to shine. I know we have a sitting question right now for, let's see. Okay, one just came in. Caroline, do you want to touch on who that question is for? I know you said in your line of work, how have you had to adjust with COVID-19? Is there anyone in particular you want to hear from? Or would you like that to be a general question? I'm guessing it's general. So I'm going to go ahead and okay, thank you, Caroline. So in general, in your line of work, how have you had to adjust with COVID-19?
A lot. Everything's had to adjust. I mean, like I was in Iraq filming the day the first 3 COVID cases broke out in Iraq, and it was not a place I wanted to get quarantined, so we left very quickly. But since I got home and we were stuck not going any shoots for 3 or 4 months, that's the negative side of it. And a lot of business revenue went down. People weren't running up saying, "Hey, I'd love to give you lots of money to make documentaries right now." But I got to spend a ton of time with my family, and so I was able to life is mindset. I'll shift this also into the success question. That was a great question about how do we define success and what's your biggest challenge in achieving it. I think the biggest challenge in achieving it is thinking that it looks like X, Y, or Z, or thinking that there's a number that's going to make you happy or a thing. Like short story, I had a client the other day who's selling his business for around 500 million. I mean, you can't live on that, but it's a good start. But no, so he's selling his business for 500 million. He's in his late 60s, and I think we all have this tendency to I daydream for a second, like, man, that'd be so awesome. Like, sort of, I started thinking, like, man, I wish I was him. And then I realized, like, I'm 40, which is ancient to probably most of you who are watching, but I'm 40, and he's like, let's say he's 65. Like, I might have all that money, but I would have missed out on 25 years worth of experiences to get there. And I guarantee you he'd pay any amount of money to be 40 again. And so I think the biggest problem with success is we think it looks like one thing. I can tell you absolutely, the day after I won my first Emmy, I woke up and I was like, what's next? The day after I won my 16th Emmy, I woke up, what's next? And so we all think there's going to be this one thing that's really going to fulfill you. And by the way, you should celebrate the wins. But just understand when it comes to wealth, when it comes to health, I don't know anyone who's happy with their weight. I am at the perfect weight right now. There's nothing I could do. So I would just encourage all of you, it's so cliche, and it's going to sound funny from a guy who's 40 years old when you're probably all 15 or 18 or however old you are. But enjoy it. Enjoy the journey, because success is just being fulfilled. And some days that's not losing it when your kids are making a mess, or some days that's you know what, I don't need to do that thing today, I'm going to go to the park. I mean, it could be anything. And so don't put it on a pedestal, because success is getting up and doing it every day because you're serving other people.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick, for touching on that. I really appreciate it. Like you said, a lot of people define success differently. People sometimes see objects and they say that person is successful, or, that person is doing really well, or you've heard the phrase, they come for money, or anything like that. People see objects, they always define that as success. Nothing's wrong or right about that. And then other people see success differently, right? And to each their own. So I really appreciate you touching on that, Nick. Awesome. Let's look at some other questions too, as well, that we have that are open. Cool. We have some answered questions in there. Thank you so much, panelists, for jumping in there and answering those questions. Attendees, do you have any other questions? Go ahead and add those into the Q&A. Perfect. We have an anonymous attendee. How did you all decide the career path you're on? Is this the one you wanted to pursue?
Well, I kind of told y'all that mine just kind of went, and I just sort of went to follow it, and which is really, I think, an interesting concept when I think we all set out and we plan to go to college and we were going to do this, and we have these sort of milestones that we set. And I think there's a lot of, I think if you ask most leaders, I mean, you would find that the things that when they did achieve them, they were kind of like maybe they were just a lot more anticlimactic than we thought they were going to be at the time. And, you know, not to say that, then to the point that you might don't not celebrate that, celebrate it. But I think it really is about the process. And so oftentimes it is, you know, we're trained to believe it's about the end game and the goal and, you know, what that means in terms of selling a company, building a company, achieving a role, getting a seat, whatever that might be for you. I think that for me, I had absolutely no idea at all that this is what I would be doing. And really what I do now is I'm a CEO for a number of different companies, and I as the permanent CEO, I'm fractional, and I run numerous businesses across numerous sectors all over the world. And so, but sometimes, you know, I'm in my pajamas all day, right? Because COVID has affected us all. But I mean, I could be in my pajamas from here down, you guys just don't know, right? So, I mean, I think that part of the journey too is that we can't be so focused on the goal and the end game that we don't live our lives and we don't have fun. And I just have to say that because, like, if it's not fun, I don't want to do it. I'm just going to be honest. Like, I mean, I know it's going to be hard, and my work has been hard. It's been very hard to watch. I can't even count how many funerals I have had to go to because essentially we failed at saving that patient. That's not fun. And nothing about that is to be taken lightly. That therefore the environment in which we work and the way that we work and the way that we approach whatever work-life intersection is, I always say intersection because I've never been able to figure out balance. So that's not really that's not my life. I'm a single mom of those 4 kids. I might mention that. So it just has to look different for me. And so I would just say, I would hope that while you're going through it, you enjoy it. I mean, I don't know if we look back at our lives and we didn't have fun and we don't like crack up. And I think that I'm going to get my staff, like, you know, some like coasters with really funny memories from the year, just that are sitting around that they're going to be like, oh my gosh, that's the greatest. Like, that's kind of dorky, but you know what? It's going to put a smile on our face. And as we said, everybody needs a little bit of a hug or needs, you know, to be reminded that we're not just here to achieve, succeed, dollar, give, get. We also just have to live. And so I hope that everybody does a little bit of that too and gives themselves some grace for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that thoughtful answer. I appreciate it. One question I have that is not in the open Q&A yet, I'm going to definitely get to the question that was just posted, but I would like to have every panelist actually answer this question. This should be just rapid fire. I would like 2 things from everybody. 1, what is your favorite podcast or your favorite video, audio, anything that you listen to or you consume that helps you, whether it's now or something in the past? Only 1. And Nick, you can't say your own. 2, also, what is your favorite personality or strength finder type test that you really enjoy or like? So rapid fire, you don't have to touch on them. You can post it in the chat, or we can just go each panelist and have everyone basically give a response.
One is too hard, but I'll give you one book I read recently that was amazing mind shift for me. It's called They Ask You Answer by Marcus Sheridan. Shifted my marketing mindset more than anything in 10 or 15 years. It's a great book. So They Ask You Answer. And I like the Kolbe assessment, Kolbe. I think it tells you what people are going to, essentially, if people were left on an island, what would they do? Like, many people can shapeshift because they want a job. But when you know what they really want to do, you know that, oh, even though they, like, I've had people in jobs that I was surprised later, like, they were so good at it. Well, they really didn't want to do it, they just want to get paid, and they were smart enough to do it to get paid. So if you check out the Kolbe before they start, you can typically align it with the job description and see, are they going to be a long-term good fit for this, or should I find something else for them, or should I find somebody else?
Thank you so much, Nick. If you can definitely post the book, please. I think people would love to look that up. And then Colby, Kolbe, if you can post that too as well in the chat for everybody to see. I really appreciate it, Nick. Awesome, Jose. Okay, yeah, go ahead. You jump on.
Oh, I'll go. So for me, what I listen to, and I'm actually taking recommendations right now. So if you have one, like Insta, tweet, whatever, send it to me. My Spotify list that I am titling like for a particular project that's all about empowerment, equality, gender diversity. And so it's like my anthem mix. So like on the list right now would be a couple of older songs, newer songs, different things, all genres. And so it's like, it's the kind that when I feel like I have writer's block, it's going to make me remember why we're doing it. So that's my lane. And then the test, I mean, like, gosh, there's so many. I love like the Enneagram success factors, but I really do like the Myers-Briggs, mostly because in teams, it's really nice to know what I'm working with here. And there's a great book called Type Talk at Work that if you know what you are as a Myers-Briggs, I'm an ENTJ, kind of look it up and see. And then you sort of know how you work with every different type.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. If you can definitely post just like Nick did and definitely leave a comment, that would be very, very helpful.
Book would be, I highly recommend this book. It's called Grit by Angela Duckworth. Must read. As far as podcasts, I'm going to do a shameless plug for, it's a young man that I'm mentoring, a good friend of mine. I've never met him in person till recently. I've been mentoring now for a few years. It's called Molding the Mindset, Bob Giozzi, a good friend of mine from Philly. I will say, someone asked a question. I want to touch this because when people talk about leadership, that's one of my passions. That's probably, the question was by Ali. She says, asking in general, what advice would you give leaders who are trying to develop and empower other leaders? Oh gosh, the thing that I've done the most in my career is delegate. And what I mean by delegate, not just meaningless tasks, right? It's when you delegate someone, you're entrusting them with a responsibility that they're capable of doing it. And that was done to me so much throughout my career. And I just thought I was just doing stuff to be challenged, but it was more than challenging, right? It was giving me the opportunity to sort of test myself. So if you're someone that's trying to develop future leaders, feedback, empower them, engage them, genuinely be curious about what makes them tick. And more importantly, give them opportunities that other people won't give them. And you'll see how people will shine.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Jose. I see that Susie posted Words Can Change Your Brain by Andrew Newberg. Susie, do you want to touch on that at all? Or would you like to?
Yeah. So obviously, you know, my whole job and my whole life is all about communication. And so I just picked this book up in the airport and didn't really know what to expect, but it was actually really good because it kind of tells you like how your body reacts to things, and that affects your communication, and how all of these things affects not just business, but every relationship in your life. And so it's really cool to see, you know, these things that you probably never knew were going on in your body and in your mind, and how they're affecting your entire life. So I love that book. One book that I always read when I want to get inspired and when I want to think about, you know, following my dreams is The Alchemist. That's one of my favorite books ever, and I give it away to everyone that I possibly can. And then to stay grounded and really help me sleep sometimes at 9 p.m., which is sometimes what time I have to go to bed or earlier, I always listen to meditation music or have it on in the background, and it just kind of brings everything down and calms me down for a while.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was very, very, very thoughtful. I appreciate you taking the time to as well to post to as well the actual book to as well. Can we wrap up with one more question? We've had a very good session, in my opinion, and I'm really looking forward to sending these key takeaways. I took a few notes while everyone was talking. And the last question that we have is, how do you keep your team internally and externally motivated despite conflicts and obstacles?
I'll take a stab at that one. One of the most sort of impactful things that I got to do and sort of learned that from I've worked for a lot of great leaders that sort of helped me be a better leader, is that we would do this exercise where we would go around the table with my team and we'd all get to talk about one or two things that we liked about each person in that room. And in corporate America, talking about feely stuff is typically not very socially acceptable, right? It's sort of taboo, if you will. But I made it untaboo. I said, look, we see each other more than I get to see my own family at times. So we're going to talk about this stuff. So I remember going around the table and I was telling one of the young gals that was the leader for my team what I appreciated about her. And it all of a sudden, it was very emotional for us because it was very genuine, but I could tell that no one had actually taken the time on her team or really around her social circle to tell her what they appreciated about her. And when we were done with that, she came into my office and she sat down and we had our moment. And she said, hey, Jose, I really appreciate you doing that because I wasn't aware that that was one of my strengths, but you saying it sort of made me feel that way. So I'm going to continue doing that. So that's certainly one way you can certainly get your team engaged and inspired is by letting them know how you appreciate them. Because more often than not, we focus on the 10%. The 10% is the bad, right? Like you're not doing this good, you're not doing this good. But 90% of what people do oftentimes is really good. Otherwise, they wouldn't be employed there, right? So let's focus on the 90% and give people credit.
Awesome. We have about 2 minutes.
Having been a crisis leader, I can kind of speak to this in some of the toughest times that I think it's really hard when people have built something up. And to give you a sense, Susan G. Komen was a $500 million organization when crisis hit. And we took a 40% hit in 1 year and subsequent hit after that. So that's a lot to lose immediately. And that's a lot of years of what people have done. The same situation with Lance Armstrong, first immediate year afterwards, 40% hit. Then the drop off that we typically see is because of corporate partnerships that have to end, but don't always end near immediate. That's a difficult place to be in. I've unfortunately had to do a number of restructures at almost every organization just because it had to be done. So I would tell you the main thing is kind of to keep the main thing. And to remind people why they were ever there in the first place. And that's the mission. And whether it's for-profit, nonprofit, startup, we all are there for a clear mission and a clear vision. And whether or not it feels like we're actually meeting that mission to its fullest extent right now, in that time of difficulty, in that time of financial hardship, that's a real question. But are we actually moving towards that vision? Yes, we actually still are. So I think bringing people back to the core of why we do what we do and why we ever started out to do it means a lot. And also valuing their contributions along the way, regardless of other things that might have happened out of their control.
I really appreciate it. Everyone, thank you so much. I want to have everyone take a second to clap for themselves. I really appreciate everyone for taking the time to jump on and share some advice and share some energy. So thank you so much. I'm going to just definitely tap into some closing remarks. And JA is very, very happy to have all of the attendees and the panelists join us today. And once again, I'm going to leave some information on how you can reach out to JA. We talked a lot about service today, and a lot of people are asking, what can I do to actually volunteer, especially in times like these? And JA has several volunteer opportunities, and JA is Junior Achievement. Once again, Junior Achievement's a nonprofit, and they focus on empowering people through education. They are currently recruiting volunteers right now, and there are a lot of pre-recorded and also live virtual opportunities. So please, I'm going to definitely leave some information. Visit jadallas.org or email education@jadallas.org. I'm also going to leave some information about Young Executive Society, so you can actually look into joining Young Executive Society and also emailing Nikki West. That's Nikki West at nwest@jadallas.org. So I'm going to post some key takeaways here in the chat, and I'm pretty sure we're going to have a follow-up email too as well for everybody. And this is going to be going to all panelists and attendees. And okay, it's too big to even post actually. That's how many takeaways we had from this. That's good. So we'll probably email that out to everybody, but I basically just noted some things such as, key takeaways on community, on failure, on planning your day, on what would be something that you would do differently, on principles, and also on good content. And then last but not least, let's definitely make sure that everyone shares their Instagram handles. I think everyone did that except for Jose. Jose, if you don't have Instagram, can you share maybe a social handle that you're comfortable with when it comes down to people connecting with you? And I'm going to definitely pass it to JA to have any closing remarks.
Hi, thank you everyone for attending, and just thank you again to all of the panelists for volunteering your time. This has been absolutely wonderful. And yeah, and again, if you have any questions about joining YES, please email me or visit jadallas.org. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.